We're going to review the fundamentals of your full swing. We're going to be comparing your swing to Grant Waite, who's a PGA Tour player. And Tiger Woods said that Grant has one of the best swings on the tour. Now we're going to look at your swing side by side to Grant's swing and look at some comparisons. Starting here with the impact position. The golf ball is on the face of the club about 4 milliseconds. The golf ball only responds to the laws of physics and motion that exist during those 4 milliseconds. How solid you hit it, the ball flight, the distance of the shot, the direction of the shot, the curve of the shot, everything that happens to that golf ball happens during that 4 milliseconds. Everything you do with your golf swing up until that moment of impact can either help or hinder the position of the club as it hits the ball. What makes a good setup fundamental is that it helps you have a good impact position. What makes a grip fundamental is that it helps you have a good impact position. What makes a backswing fundamental is that it helps you have a good impact position. Having a good impact position is what it's all about. One of the things that we notice is that Grant has a lot more of his weight on his left side at impact. In fact, the average pro has 85% of their body weight on top of that left leg. In fact, if we see that line, it crosses right through Grant's belt buckle, so the center of his body is on top of his left foot. You have certainly more weight on your left foot than your right foot at impact, which is very good, but we need to go even further. We need to have a lot more shifting to the left on the downswing so that when we get to the golf ball, we have more weight on the left side. Now, why is that important? It's critical that the low point of your swing be in front of the golf ball. If we look at that space right there in that circle, you can see this dark area in front of the golf ball. Those are the divots that Grant has been hitting. He hits the ground after he hits the ball. So the dirt that's flying in his swing was dirt that was in front of the ball. He does not hit the dirt at the ball or behind the ball. That means the low point of his swing was in front of the golf ball. He was hitting down into that ball, not hitting level and not hitting up. He has a nice straight line from his left arm through the shaft. You almost have a good extension in that arm. It is a little bent, not a lot, just a little. His elbows are a little closer together. Yours are starting to separate just a little bit. That's not a bad impact position, but we're just going to try to make that just a little bit better so the shot is a little more solid. Now let's look at the other positions of the golf swing. Now we're back to the starting position, position 1, which is sometimes called the address position. If we look at Grant, we can see that he's already has a straight line with his left arm and shaft of the club, so he's almost set the club in the impact position when he begins. If we look at the line from his left ankle up, he actually starts with a little more weight on his left leg than his right. Not as much as he will have at impact. At impact, I mentioned earlier that he'll have 85% of his weight on his left side at impact, but he probably has 55% of his weight at the start. So he presets a little bit of weight on his left side to begin with. That will help him get to the 85% at impact. you have set your weight um, almost evenly balanced between the 2 feet. That's fairly common for new players. But one of the things that we're going to incorporate here is that we're going to um, have a little bit of a pre-shift, just a little bit of shift to your left side at the setup. I will say that I do like the fact that you have this, what we call a shaft lean. Your hands are slightly in front of the golf ball, which it puts a little bit of a lean in that shaft, which makes it easier to hit down into the ball. So that's very good. So you're almost doing the same thing that Grant is doing, in that um, your left arm is almost extended and almost in the same line as the shaft of the club. One of the things that we'll work on is we change, if we're going to adjust your grip a little bit to help, which is one of the reasons you have trouble extending this left arm, is because of your grip. So as we improve your grip, that will improve the starting position. Also, if we look at Grant's left foot, in fact both feet are a little bit flared out, the toes are pointed out a little bit, and yours are very square, very straight. When you turn that foot out, it facilitates a shift to the left during the downswing, and so it helps you get to that good impact position if you turn that foot out. And that's going to be something that I'm going to ask you to work on, is to have those feet out a little bit more. That will help you get into that good impact position. Also, from this angle, it's harder to see from this angle, but it appears that your legs are a lot straighter. You don't have a lot of flex in your knees. You can see how Grant has flexed his legs a little bit. A lot of the power that you use in the golf swing to create club head speed comes from the stronger leg muscles, not just your hand and arm muscles. So once you learn how to set up more athletically and get into a good athletic stance, you'll have a lot more power with less effort. If you try your hand and arm muscles, you won't be able to hit the ball very far. But if we use your larger leg muscles, you'll be able to hit the ball further once you learn how to use that. Do a swing that uses the leg muscles. Everything else looks pretty good at this position. So let's go to the next position. This is the 3 position. It's halfway back in the backswing. If we look at Grant's left arm, we see a nice extension here. If we draw a line from the shaft, he almost has a right angle from his left arm and the shaft of the club. He's hinged the club up in the air almost into a right angle at this point. You are not quite in the same position. You have trouble keeping this left arm extended. You have trouble creating a right angle. In fact, there's very little angle when you look at this. The forearm and the shaft have just barely increased the hinge. And so we're going to want to improve this position. We're going to want that club much more up in here at this position. And as I said earlier, that once we adjust your grip, you'll find cocking this club up in the air will be much easier for you to do, and you'll get a lot more power if we can load the hands a little bit better. So working on your grip and improving and changing your grip will be one of the first things that we do, which will really create a whole new dynamic in your golf swing. Let's also look at what you've done with your weight. I mentioned earlier that Grant starts with about 55% of his weight on the left side. As he rotates back, as he turns into his back swing, he still maintains that weight on that left side. He's almost dropping down into the left leg with this left shoulder. His left shoulder and left knee are still on that line. You've done a pretty good job of also staying a little bit on that left side. you can see how this leg is at a little bit of an angle. So that means that you have what I call a bracing angle. You've moved a little bit away from that line with this knee, but that's about where it was when you started. And once we set up your stance with a maybe slightly wider stance and getting the toes out, it'll be much easier for you to get into this 3 position closer to what Grant has. Let's go to the next position. Now we're at the top of the backswing. Grant still has maintained that full extension. He now has basically cocked his wrist even further. He's even increased that angle. He's almost at a 90-degree angle now with the shaft and the arm. So he's fully loaded those hands and ready to unload. You really haven't increased that angle much. If we look at the angle in the forearm and shaft, and again, that issue is going to go completely away once we adjust your grip. Once we adjust your grip, you're going to be able to have this power angle in your hands. Let's look at your shoulder turn. I'm really impressed with how much you've rotated and turned your shoulders. You've really coiled your upper body. Your back is facing the target. Your shoulder turn is it's just as good and strong as Grant is. If we look at this line again, this left leg line, Grant has continued to keep on that line. His knee, his left hip, everything is still on that line. You've moved a little further away at the top of the swing than you had in the 3 position, so you have a little bit of movement away from the target. And so that also moves that low point of the swing further back now. Remember, I said that everything we do prior to impact is in preparation to have a good impact position. And a good impact position must have the low point of the swing in front of the golf ball. And the low point of the swing is tied to where your center of gravity is. If your body mass is more in front of the ball than behind it, then you're going to keep the low point in front of the ball. If you move that body mass behind the ball, then you've moved the low point behind the ball. And that can create inconsistencies in striking down the ball and hitting the ball solid. So once we widen your stance and flare the toes out a little bit, and you learn how to get into your backswing but still maintain your weight on the left side, then you'll be better prepared to have a good impact position. This is the 6th position of the golf swing. This is when the club is basically parallel to the ground. This is the position right before impact. So if we can have a really good 6th position, it makes it much easier to have a good impact position. First, we're going to look at his weight shift. You can see how he's now moved his weight. In fact, if you recall, the impact position had his belt buckle right on top of his left foot. He actually gets there before he gets to impact. So he's moving almost 85% of his weight on top of that left leg at the 6th position. So he doesn't have any last-minute moves to make in order to get to that position at impact. He gets there before impact. This line is going right through his belt buckle. Both legs are leaning and driving to the target. If we draw that line off of your left leg, you do have a good angle here. I like that a lot. So you already have a good sense of moving to the target, and once I set up your stance a little better and you get those toes flared out, I think you're going to adapt to this move very easily. I think it'll become a natural move because you already have a natural sense to move that way. So that's very good. We just need to enhance this a little bit more. This right arm here and shaft of the club are basically at a right angle. Do the same here. Now if I extend this line all the way to the ground, you can see that when his shaft of his club gets parallel to the ground, he has his hand right in front of his right thigh. His hands are in front of his back foot, whereas your hands are still behind your left foot. Again, a lot of that's going to be correlated to changing your grip. That'll make all of these things a little bit easier. Now we're at impact, and I'm not going to go through that again, so let's keep going through. This is the first post-impact position, what's called the 8th position. I define the 8th position as when the club is when the club is at a 45-degree angle here. If we look at Grant, first thing that's obvious and noticeable is that his right arm is fully extended and in the same line as the shaft of the club. Also, both arms are fully extended. If we look at the weight, he's even further onto the left side. His right pocket now is almost up to his front foot. As you get to your 8th position, you're having difficulty extending that right arm, and also your elbows are separating. The distance between the two elbows is getting further apart. This elbow, the left arm, is kind of lifting up high off your side. That's kind of what we call chicken winging a little bit. And so this is going to be a new move that you're going to learn how that feels, how this fundamental feels to swing through the ball. It's important as a teacher that I not only tell you about the fundamental, but I've got to help you experience the fundamental. You need to know what that fundamental feels like, and there are some specific drills that we're going to do to help you get that feeling. Now we're in the 9th position, and Grant has maintained that full extension. He's moved this right pocket even further forward. He's easily on his weight, is strongly on top of his left leg. He's also maintained this tilt in his spine as he comes through. So you can see his shoulder angle here. You haven't gotten quite as far forward. You still have this bent right arm. We don't need to worry too much about the 9th position right now, because as we improve the earlier positions, you'll automatically and more naturally fall into the correct 9th position. So we're not going to focus on trying to have a good 9th position. We're going to try to focus on having a good 6th position and a 7th position, and that automatically makes the 8th and 9th better positions. So these are just observations of these are kind of residue pictures of what is occurred earlier in the swing. If we fix what occurred earlier, then this will automatically change. Now here we are at the 10th position, the final pose. Again, just a reflection of everything that's gone on before. As we improve those pieces before the 10th becomes even better. That completes the swing report for your first session, and I look forward to the opportunity to work with you and start making some of those positive changes in your fundamentals.